Hello and welcome. My name's Anthony Corvino, but over the years I've just been known as Corvino because how many Anthony's can you really know from New York? But in today's video, just going to go over some of my MIDI controllers and how I use them in my DJ setup. And I've been DJing since 2009, 2010, and my first controller I got in 2011, towards the end of 2011, and it was the Native Instruments S4, which was their flagship controller. And everything was really neat on the controller. It was everything labeled properly, every button was utilized, and it was really a phenomenal piece of equipment and a great intro into controllerism. And over the years, through watching Richie Hawden and Nicole Mudaber and Chris Liebing and their setups evolving, it really inspired me to take it a step further. And then I moved on to the Xone MK2s by Native Instruments as well. And again, every button, every knob, it had the sliders, everything served a purpose. And it really, that was like my gateway to where I am now. And so today we're going to go over 3 different MIDI controllers that I use. And the first we're going to go over is the Allen and Heath Xone K2 and how I have set these up and mapped them. A big thing that people have always asked me is, how do you remember what all the buttons and knobs do? And the key factor there is my mind created the MIDI map. So I mapped all these myself. And it's just more like second nature when you do this. It's you have the intent like drilled into your mind already. So that's that. So we are going to go over the Allen and Heath Xone K2s. One of the best features that I feel with these controllers is that I can connect them with the Ethernet cable. And then with another Ethernet cable, I plug right into the Xone 96. And then with one USB cable, I have 2 controllers and my mixer connected to my laptop, which really convenient. So that's the first MIDI controller that we're going to go through. Second one we're going to go through is the MIDI Fighter 3D. This controller, its main purpose for me is playing my effects harmoniously or harmonically, the rolling and just being able to play it. So we'll be able to check that out. And there are 2 other banks that I have set up for track preparation and a little bit of a nudging, something that I haven't been able to incorporate into the K2s just because ran out of space on them. And last but not least, we're going to go over one more MIDI controller, which is weird or may not seem like a MIDI controller, more like hotkeys, but my laptop keyboard. And my laptop keyboard, I basically mapped to prepare tracks. All right. So once I get a new track in, I'll show you the functionality there and how I attribute this to this keyboard to helping me prep my tracks for a set. So let's dive right in. So as promised, first we're going to start up with the Xone K2s. Now here we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up, just so that way I think that's the best workflow on it. So I have here my shift buttons. That's shift 1. So these 2 are shift 1. These 2 are shift 2. Now you'll also notice this button lights up. Now that actually allows me to set the deck focus in Tractor. So right now we're going to work on decks A and C. Now, the thing that I did with this controller is, if you look at the original S4, actually I think all the S4s, they're from left to right on the mixer. It goes C, A, B, and D. And I've pretty much stuck with that as long as I've been playing on controllers. So this will control deck C, this will control deck A, this will control deck B, and this will control deck D, excuse me. Now back to these knobs here. You'll see here, this knob here controls my browser. If I push it, it'll open up a larger browser. Now, when I hold shift and I turn this knob, it'll bring me down the tree list. And if I'm holding shift and push it down again, it'll actually close the tree list or expand it. So I'll just bring this right here. And next is this knob. Now, at first sight, there's nothing there. Nothing's happening with Tractor. But when I hit shift, it'll actually bring me across my favorites. Now moving along to this button, this knob here. This knob will allow me to just open that up. And let me bring that back. So this knob, again, does nothing until I hit the shift. And I did that as a safeguard. But you'll notice my master clock up top in the center is changing the tempo. So this is one way on how I change the tempo during my sets. And then when I come across a track, let's say that I want to generate a stem for. Now you don't see it on the screen, but it is generating a stem right now. So shift and tapping down on this button right here will allow to generate a stem. So it'll analyze a track and give you a stem. Now moving along to this row of buttons here. As I said before, there is every button serves a purpose, all right, for the most part. Now I'm just going to bring it down to my playlist, and again, C, A, B, D. I'll just work on deck A right now, but I could take a track and I could load a track, all right? And this button, this is my sync. So I just make sure that as I'm using these controllers, everything's in sync. Yes, I know there's a large amount of debate across sync and whether it's cheating or not, but I promise you I can beat match. It's like DJing 101. If we're worried about beat matching, like, we should focus more on what's being played and what's coming out of those speakers. So I think we could enjoy it more rather than, hey, is he turning a knob or spinning a platter? But and that's the same through each of the decks. All right. Now we will go over these two rows right here. All right. Now these two rows, and you'll get some audio, but these two rows are for hot cues and loop points. And that's 1 through 4. Now, if I hit shift, I could actually go 5 through 8. And then, so with the shift button on the right, my shift 2, I could actually delete tracks, or I'm sorry, not tracks, but I would be deleting hot cues or loops. So then shift 1 and shift 2 at the same time, I'll be able to delete the hot cues 5 through 6. Then up top here, these rows, this row, excuse me, is going to be my cue. So that's my cue. And the play button. Now you'll notice while the track is playing, the play button is red. That is just something for me that when I am playing in a club, it lets me know, hey, this deck is alive. So before you do anything with it, like trying to load another track in, or stopping the music, just take a look at the screen, make sure that it is okay to stop. And that's a really big one for me. Now, again, CABD on these buttons that control my two effects racks. So effects 1 for me is always a filter, right? And that'll just it emulates the Xone the Xone 96 filter or Xone 92 filter. So and then the second button will be activating effects unit 2 to that deck. So where I could just do that, take that. All right. So moving right along, this year, Native Instruments Tractor has announced utilization of stems. So for me to load a stem in, I hit a shift button, and then this is, I guess I forgot to talk about this. This is my load button. So this is how I load a track into Tractor. All right. So shift and this button here, and it loads it in as a stem. Or if I want to just load it in as a track, I can just hit that without any shift. And there you have it. So now, and this is where I will start to load multiple tracks into my 4 decks and just give you a rundown. So this is actually, these 2 rows of buttons, or I'm sorry, knobs, are not set up in a CABD fashion. It's more C, A, B, and D, just how you see it on Tractor. And so now here, I set these lights. They're actually, the buttons are not functioning, but they do let me know that I am controlling the white portion, or like the master volume of each stem on each track. So there you'll see the drums are being controlled on deck C with this. All right. And let me just play something here. Now the next knob is going to control the bass. Then the other, which is more like your melodics portion. And then last but not least, here you have your vocal control, or your volume control. So you could actually take that out. Last night, I couldn't even get an answer. And tried to call, but my pride wouldn't let me die. And I'm sitting here with this blank expression. So, and that's my my stem portion there. Now, these knobs, these buttons aren't utilized. These knobs I set up pretty much this one dry wet to control track 1, and I have to hit the shift button just because for the most part I always keep this at 100%. Now these knobs and buttons, I really don't mess with effects unit 1's parameters because it is set to a certain way. Now in the event that anything were to ever get messed up, let's say my my resolution gets changed, or my low pass high pass parameter, once I hit this button here, it'll actually bring it right back. So I'd never lose that those parameters. Now this is effects unit 2. This will control my dry wet. Oh, let me just take this here. So this will control my dry wet, right? This will control the amount of delay T3, and then the amount of reverb T3. Now here, these buttons will turn on the units, or turn on the effects inside the unit, or they'll turn them off. Now, the top row of encoders, I have a shift built into it, right? And the shift is pretty much on both sides. So you'll notice this upper left-hand corner will illuminate yellow when I press this encoder. And what that does is, for when I set a loop, so when I set a loop and I press that encoder, I'm then able to twist this encoder. And so I press that encoder, I twist this encoder, all with the same hand. And it was important for me to be able to do that, just because it's one of those functions where I use this to actually set the size of the loop, and then also to engage or disengage the loop. And then having that shift there allows me to get the additional functionality there. So again, C, A, B, D on those. Pressing that gives me another shift function. And these are different shift functions. So like you'll notice the shift functions that are tied together, like this is a modifier 3, right? So there you could have up to 8 modifiers and then 8 different steps within those modifiers in tracked or when MIDI mapping. So this is modifier 1, this is modifier 2, modifier 3, and then here I have modifier 4. So when I press this button, you'll notice this row of lights changed amber or orange or yellow, however you want to call it. And what that then does is allows me to change the amount of effects. So you'll notice the orange knob changes inside of the stem deck, right? And that basically just controls how much effects you're applying to those sounds. So that's pretty much the rundown here on the Xone K2. And this is one of the things that so many people have always asked me, like how are you doing this? How are you playing? Like and I've piqued curiosity in some fellow DJs out in Arizona specifically. So, it's been pretty awesome. So the overall on it, again, that's the K2s. I'm a huge fan of them. I strongly recommend anybody that's interested in getting into MIDI controlling and mappings. Phenomenal unit. They do have some quirks, like the LEDs are, getting used to them, or familiarizing yourself with them can be a little tedious at times, but definitely well worth it. Um, Let me see here real quick on the K2s. Also, these faders, I don't use these faders at all. I should find something to do with them. I feel like I should, but at the same time, um, it's it's comfortable for me, the way it's set up. So, I usually just keep them down and I don't mess with them at all, uh, as they're not mapped to anything. So now, next we're going to be moving on to the MIDI Fighter 3D. And as I said, the MIDI Fighter 3D has been discontinued. They had some supply chain issues where they weren't able to provide or produce more. So now what's available through DJ Tech Tools, and I am not affiliated with any of these brands, um, but DJ Tech Tools, you can get a MIDI Fighter Spectra. So what it does, and I'll show you, but if you look at that bottom row of lights, and buttons, you don't have that. So you just have the 16 arcade buttons, and then you have your side, um, your 3 buttons on each side, on the 2 sides. So that's that. But it is a phenomenal controller, and it definitely opens you up to controlling more. And more control is better than less control, right? So let's dive right into that. So the way that I have this MIDI Fighter 3D MIDI mapped, I actually have bank 1 as my bank 4. So in its normal orientation, it would be like this, but you got to have it my way. That's the whole purpose of MIDI mapping. So I guess I could start with my bank 1. Now my bank 1 allows me to, if you take a look at the effects unit 2, you'll see how it's impacting the delay and the delay T3. And I haven't really mapped the T3 reverb yet to this, but different rolls. This bottom row will actually roll the effects together to the same parameter. This one's a little bit of an invert, and then just delay T3 and my delay. Now my bank 2 is actually blank, so I don't have anything mapped to these yet. So I have a little bit of an expansion that I could build in that T3 eventually down the road. Now this map is a bit more complex. This map actually allows me to jog and by deck. So it's actually for sets where I could, as I'm playing something, let's just play it here. That I could actually pitch bend. I could set loops. A lot of different functionality here. That I guess it's more just on how my brain works. So, like if you go to this now up here, I have my different hotkeys cues set up top, so I could actually play around and bounce around a little bit easier. And this is just selecting the deck focus. So here, I'm just selecting which deck I'm controlling. And then on the final bank, my bank 4, I have here again deck focus, and right now I'm controlling deck D. So this second row will actually allow me to change the volume adjust on stems only. If I wanted to use filters or eventually build in filters, I could do that right here. And then if I want to shut off the functionality on the effects in the stem. So again, controlling deck D, and it's again CABD. So deck D. Now the thing that I did with these buttons is that they are inverted, so they only shut off when I release, right? And they'll only turn on once I release. So expanding on what I did with these knobs here, being able to shut off the parameter as well on a hard kill rather than, turning a knob. All right, that allows me to just give it a kill. So, and then let's say something's coming in and I want to drop it on point, I'll just do that right there. Now, to give you a little bit of an idea on how how this would sound, how rolling your effects would sound, I'll just choose something up here. And let's give it a, make sure to turn on effects unit 2. And again, being able to control the dry wet with this knob here allows me to kind of build onto something. You know what, let me just bring this over. So the delay.
I saw you look to him, and him look back at you. I felt the pain, I went insane, and knew there's not much I could do. I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my hand, you'll understand. It's times like 1992. Girls, don't need nobody, girls. 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 Don't need nobody, 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 need nobody. I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my hand, you'll understand. It's dance like 1992.
And that's really the my MIDI Fighter 3D and how I utilize it in my DJ sets. And I guess it's not as complex. It's more of an add-on, but it just adds a little layer that and more playability. And just really enjoy dropping some effects and being able to play through those. That's really the main purpose on it, is having my effects being rollable or playable, right, harmonically. So next, we're actually going to move on to my keyboard and how I MIDI map that to help control Tractor in prepping my tracks for when I, when I'm getting ready for a gig, or how I want to, incorporate different hot cues and loops. So we'll go over that one next. Really quick, just wanted to take a quick minute. Thank you again if you've made it this far. If you're enjoying it, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. I do plan on doing more and hopefully getting better at doing these videos. So I hope it's been informative for you and giving you some ideas and some inspirations to take this into your own world and how you can utilize MIDI mapping to just making your controllers do a little more for you rather than what a manufacturer like Native Instruments. Nothing against what they've done, but making it more for yourself. So thank you so much, and let's get into the keyboard. Now here on my keyboard, what I'm going to do right off the bat, I'm going to go to my preparation deck, and like this, just able to see the track as a whole a lot better. Let's see here. Now my space bar allows me to open up the browser, make it a little bit larger. Now I'm going to go into, I'd like to go into something that I've got set up as, actually let me just take it here. So let's just take Layden Jordani, for instance. All right. And I'm sorry, this Girls Dom Dalla Layden Jordani extended remix. Now, the I button that I have will automatically load into the deck. Now, here, the one. So you hear it there. Now, my left and right buttons will actually jog the track per whatever you have the loop set to. So if it's a 4-beat or a 16-beat loop, 8-beat, 4-beat, whatever the case may be. So, and with the arrows left and right that are above the comma and period button, all right, I can change the size of the loop. Now by hitting the letter L, I set my loop, hit it again, I can take it off. All right. And again, going back on my D-pad, if I go left or right, I'm able to then move throughout the track. All right. And let's see here. Now B is to lock the BPM. So if I know that the grid is set and it's set properly, I will then just automatically just hit the B. I have my 1 point set. The beat is on point. It's on grid perfectly. It's not gonna move anywhere. All right. Now let me just take that off. Now with these buttons here, and I don't know what that symbol is called. I guess parentheses. Well, I don't know. They're like the blocky parentheses. But I could actually change where that marker's hitting. All right. Now, let's say I've gotten to a point where I completely messed up the track. Well, no, let's just say I took this BPM, I changed it, and really messed it up, right? Let's just put 137, and you notice that the grid is completely off, and you don't know, now you can't fix it, and you can't get back to the proper BPM. And you hit Shift A, and it'll ask, are you sure you want to reset the beat grid and BPM? This will restore the beat grid and BPM to its original state. You cannot undo this action. At this point, I would just hit OK. and it automatically brings it back. Now, not every song is like this. This is a perfectly gridded track, and very well done. The track structure from Layden is always pretty spot on, but I know it's on it's on grid, so I'm gonna lock that. And now I have a Q there. All right. And then I also have a Q, but this also sets the Q. It says sets auto. So the auto master on the MIDI clock to this track. All right. And then I could also hit delete. My delete button is my play button. And now with my play button, you'll notice that the sync automatically turns on. So it's synced, and it's also if I want to hear how a song sounds with something else, I'll just play it, drop it in there. And I'll just be able to see how it sounds. All right.
I saw you look to him, and him look back at you. I felt the pain, I went insane, and knew there's not much I could do. I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my hand, he'll understand. Let's dance like 1992. Girls don't need nobody, girls.
And going back to my preparation deck. So I got to turn this back up. And I'm just taking a listen here. Now, first things that I like to do, and it's just the way that I set my tracks, but I will typically find a loop. And I'll use 2. That's my 2 point. So I'll find a loop at the beginning that I really like. Now, because this is more of a vocal, or I would use more of the vocal, I'm more concerned with where the vocal starts.
You look to him. I saw you look to him.
And just taking a listen to this to see where exactly I want that to
start. You look
start.
to him, and him look back at you. I felt the pain, I went insane, and knew there's not much I could do. I saw him look at me, and like girls don't need nobody. Got me say you hate girls don't need nobody.
And just moving right along. I'll usually always set my 3 marker to the main bridge or main midsection of the song.
I saw you look to him, that you need nobody. But then I look to you, just grab my hand, he'll understand. Let's dance like 1992.
4 is at the main drop. And now with this, I really have the ability, like 5, 6, 7, and 8. But for the most part, I use my first 4 cue and loop points. When I'm just sorting out a track or prepping a track, most of the time I'll put just at the end here. on just a loop. Oh. So at the end on a loop, just so that way I'll know, I'll know if the track is coming to an end. I could just emergency loop that if I need to find something else to throw in. But usually I'm fairly set, just knowing where I want to go with the set. So, but yeah, and then in this avenue here, I could set my 5, my 6, my 7, my 8. Now, when you hit shift and one of those numbers, either 8 or 1 through 8, then I could delete those cue points, and I'm just going to delete 8 through 5, just because I have 4, my first 4 where I want them for something like this track and how I would perform it. So yeah, pretty much that's how or my MIDI controllers and how they're mapped. The keyboard prep is a little bit off the whim, but it definitely helps. I mean, I use it every time I get new music, which is pretty much every day, to prep my songs the way I want them, the way I want to play them, and it's definitely a good tool for me. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. As I'm wrapping up here, give it a like. Let me know in the comments below what I could do better, what controllers you might be using at home, if there's any MIDI mappings that you're a big fan of. I know there's a lot of people out there that do MIDI mappings, which is really cool. If there's custom maps that you're working on, just give me a shout out in the comments. Let me know what's going on with you and how you've incorporated technology into your DJ sets. I do think that I'd like to do more how I play, where I bring you up top on my actual DJ booth and show you how it all works together. I also play with Native Instruments Machine MK3, which gives me a hybrid element to it as well. So I'm able to incorporate different sounds, synths, drums into my sets on top of the songs already. And I think that'd be a lot of fun to do, just to show the different shaping and molding that you could do of a track on the 96. I'm a huge 96 fan. Nothing against the V10. I love my 96. I think it's just a creature of habit at this point. But again, thank you guys so very much for tuning in and checking out this video and making it this far. I hope it's been inspirational for you, and look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.